So this is a 1991 GMC Suburban, and what we're going to do is fix a loose tilt steering assembly. So if you look at that, you can see that the tilt steering is super loose. Now if you look at the steering column, you can see that that's nice and tight. So what's happened is that there are 3 Torx screws at the base of this assembly that have come loose. It's a very common problem in GM vehicles, and we're going to take you through the process of pulling the steering wheel, removing the tilt steering assembly, and then tightening up those nuts. There are a couple of special tools you're going to need to do this job correctly. The first of them is, these are the Torx sockets, and these are for tightening the screws that are at the base of the tilt mechanism. This is a steering pivot removing tool, and there's a pin at the base of the steering column above beneath the steering wheel that you need to pull, and I'll show you how to use that when we get to it. This is a steering wheel lock plate remover tool, and again I'll show you how to use it as we get in there. And then this is your steering wheel puller, and as you can see there are various size screws depending on the threads in the vehicle that you're pulling the steering wheel off of. Last but not least, red Loctite, and this is going to be used to essentially seal in those machine screws that are at the base of the assembly. If this stuff would have been put in the first place, that probably wouldn't have come loose. So the next part of this job is pretty straightforward. You pull the cover off the steering wheel. This little spring here is the switch for the horn mechanism, which goes into this hole. I don't know if you can see it right there. So when you press the horn, it honks. Anyway, what you can also see down in here are these 2 holes on either side. Those are the threaded holes that the steering wheel puller goes into. But first we got to pull this little lock pin right here out, so we can take off the big nut that's holding the steering wheel in. And go ahead and do that. That's pretty easy. And just put that aside someplace where you're going to be able to find it. And then the next thing you're going to have to do is remove this nut right here, which is what holds the steering wheel on. So this is a 13/16 nut, so all you have to do is put the socket over here and pull it off. And popped out there. And there you go. Pretty straightforward. Get that out of there. And then it's fighting me. And then we're going to get the steering wheel puller next. So the next bit I'm going to show you is how to pull the steering wheel off using a steering wheel puller. These things are available pretty much at any auto parts supply store. So what you do first is, if you can see this little hole in the top of the shaft here, you just put this bit in here and loosen the center screw until this piece touches your steering wheel. And what you're going to do is then you're going to take these screws, and this has blue painter's tape on it just so I know which one is for my vehicle, is you thread these into the hole like so. And you get the other one, and you get it in there. And these don't need to be super tight. You can literally put them down with your fingers just until they're snug. Once these are all down snug, and I've tightened them finger tight, then you can also tighten this finger tight, and so you're on there. And then all you need to do, and this is a 5/8 size screw, and you just put the socket over there, and you tighten it in, and what it'll do is, you'll see in a second, it's really easy. Steering wheel's off. So then you can just pretty much just leave that there until you're ready to work with it again. I'm going to set it over here. Okay, so this next piece of the assembly down here is the steering wheel lock plate. There's a plastic cap over the top of it that you can really just kind of pop off with a screwdriver and take off. And then this is the steering wheel lock plate mechanism. So I'm going to show you how to remove that in a second. So the next piece I want to take out is, this is the steering wheel lock plate. And this little button that pushes out here, it essentially releases when you turn your ignition, which allows you to turn the wheel. So if that's ever busted off or not there anymore, you're not going to be able to have your steering wheel lock anymore. So what you need to do to pull this off is you need to compress this piece down, and there's a little lock pin in here that we're going to need to get out. So first, and again, this lock plate remover is a tool that you can get at any auto supply store. Slide that on, and you just put it in a place that's actually going to press that down. And lower this nut. And this nut is going to be the bit that you're going to actually, where you're going to get your pressure. There's a little 1/2-inch bolt that we need to screw down a little bit, and what it'll do is you just need to squish it enough so you take the pressure. No, you don't want to go too far or break anything, but you take the pressure out this little ring, and then here it's kind of handy. It's a little C-ring, and you need to get it out. It's handy to have some, you know, a little pick or something that you can get that out of there with. So let's see. And this can be a little bit of a pill. Give it another 1/2 turn up here. Make sure I have enough pressure, and I do. Get under there, get that out of there. Okay, I may need a second tool. So when you finally get this little lock ring out of here, and here's the groove that it was in, and it's kind of a hassle to pull it out, so I didn't show you all of it. But once you get it out, you don't need to pull it completely off. You can just slide it up a little bit, just so it's out of the way, because now you'll see when we release this, when we release the spring repressor, drop the wrench, this will be able to come up enough so we'll be able to pull it out. Then you can just wiggle this thing loose, and then the whole screw and the lock ring will come out. Do not lose the lock ring. It's another thing you're going to want to put where you're going to be able to find it. This next piece here is essentially the connector for your horn, and you can see it's busted here and it's busted here, and I guess that's also very typical for these. Another part we're going to need, and see here's the copper where it makes the connection with when you honk your horn. So we're going to put all this stuff to the side. Okay, the next piece, and this is just a Phillips head screw, and this connects your blinker lever to essentially what is the blinker shift mechanism. And you can see, you know, by moving that, it moves this piece of plastic, and that's what makes your blinkers function. So we're going to pull that out and just pull this little lever out, and that just goes right back in. You can see there's a little pin in there that it slides over. You can't see it, but it'll slide over, and when we're reassembling, we'll put it there. Now the next bit is there are 3 screws that hold this whole mechanism in place, and you know, everything's plastic, so kind of take it easy. You don't want to go too crazy, but they're all pretty easy to get at. Pull the screws out. Unfortunately, my screwdriver is a little magnetized. Didn't buy it that way, but it became that way somewhere along the line. And then to get at this screw, you just push this down and you can get at it. Again, keep track of all your parts or you will be sorry later. And let's see if we can wriggle this bad boy out. Now, this is connected to a little wiring harness underneath. And you don't really need to disconnect this, and we're not going to take it all the way off. Oh, I forgot one part. Bear with me, I got to take the hazard switch off as well. So don't forget to do that. Now, the miracle of disassembly. And you see your wiring harness, and you can just pull it up, and you know, got it. Okay, the next step, you take a T20 size Torx screw remover. You come right in here, and this is for the bottom. What this does is it releases the your ignition barrel, or ignition cylinder. So let's pull that out again. Whoop, don't do that. And then this little guy should pop right out. Sometimes you might want to replace those. In this instance, it's just fine, so we're going to keep it. And I'm just going to put it to the side. The next step is to pull these 3 T30 screws out, which hold down the housing. So we're going to do that real quick. When they're tight, but not overwhelmingly so. Screws are loosened, and now we can just slide this forward. And again, we're not going to take it all the way off because of the wiring. We're just going to get it over. And then those 3 screws fall down on the carpet, so make sure you find where those went muy pronto. Next step is to pull out the steering wheel pivot pins, and they're right here, and you need another special tool for this. And again, this is something you can get at a Kragen or an AutoZone or whatever. And all you do is just screw the tool in till it's flush, and then make sure that this little sleeve is sitting against the metal, and you wind down this nut, and you grab your wrench, and you grab the right size wrench, and then that's all you need to do, and it's gonna pull that out. Takes a number of turns, and then all you do when you go to put it back in is you literally bang it back in with a hammer. So this is going to take a minute or two. Okay, this is the tilt mechanism lever, and to get the rest of the disassembly done, you've got to pull it off, at least to get this piece out of the way, and then you're going to have to put it right back on. So you just grab that, and it just threads out. I can't get it, it's a little greasy, and the end of the steering wheel is, this plastic piece is loose, so you just thread it out. Just like everything on a really old vehicle, a lot of stuff starts to break down. Now the next bit is there's a little spring assembly in here, and you get it out just by pushing it and turning it, and it comes right out. So you can do that. I just used a pair of needle nose pliers. The spring is fairly long and it's a real mess, so you're going to want something to set it on top of. Doesn't look like I'm going to need to grease that, huh?
One.
Now this is the bit where I kind of snake this out of here, and you just got to shake it back and forth a little bit until you get it. Just take a second. So now you can see we've got the whole assembly off, and you can see the whole steering knuckle here, which is the the adjustable steering back and forth. But the most important point, and this is the root cause of the problem, is down in here. These nuts, I mean, they are ready to come out. They're so loose. You can see it. So I got to go get my my Torx socket, pull those things out, clean them, put a little bit of Loctite on them, and then get them back in there. Socket is essentially just like this torque driver, only it's inverted. And in this case, you need those to get at this. So, I'm pretty sure. Oh, I'm going to need a bigger driver. I'll be right back. So we'll take the inverted Torx socket. I don't think we even need to, we might even be able to pull that one right out. It, it had nothing on it whatsoever. Just need a little something to get it out of there with. Well, maybe a couple of spins. We're going to have it. And just pull it out of your way. Get in there. There's one. We're going to just do them one at a time. We're going to clean them, put in the Loctite, tighten them down, and then we can start to reassemble. So to seal these in, we're just going to use a few drops of the red Loctite. Get it on there. You don't need a ton of it. Once it seals up, you're going to be good. The initial setup time is 10 minutes, and then 24 hours for a complete bond. So let's get this on here. Start tightening it down. Get it snug. And already you can see the difference. Okay, this is the bit where as a mechanic sometimes you have to choose to fiddle something, because the socket, the correct socket, will literally not fit into the metal, because of the metal housing here, will not fit over the Torx head nut. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a conventional socket that fits it fairly tightly, get over it, and just see how tight I can get it. And it actually feels like I can get it pretty tight. You got to be careful not to strip it. It looks like this job actually may have been done before, because the heads have a little bit of wear on them. Actually, that's working pretty good. So that, for your knowledge, is a 1/4 inch socket. So there you have it. So as you can see here, we've got the whole steering wheel assembly put back together, yanking on it. It's totally solid, the way it's supposed to be, the way it was essentially when it was new. As far as reassembly goes, it's exactly like disassembly, only reverse. So what I showed you will pretty much work to get it back together. There is one point of caution though, and this is probably more so when you are disassembling, is down in here, when you pull apart this part of the steering column, this lever here, which is your high beam lever, so it's your blinker lever, it's attached to a rod, or presses up against a rod that goes down the steering column. You need to be very careful when you're pulling it apart not to pull that rod out. You can get it back in. I did pull it out, and you can get it back in, but it's a real pain in the neck. So as you disassemble, be very mindful of that rod. And then also there's a little plastic part right in here, right in this part of the collar, that is also part of the switch, and you got to be really careful not to lose that as well. I'm going to put up a URL on the information for this video that will show you cutaways of all of these parts and exactly how they fit together. So anyway, that's the job. It's done. Hopefully this video helps you out if you need to do the same.